Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a communication habit that, honestly, it has the power to fundamentally shift how you interact with absolutely everyone in your life. We're talking about Habit 5 from Stephen R. Covey's legendary framework: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Look, if you've ever felt like your conversations are just two people taking turns talking past each other, you are in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this with a totally game-changing quote from Covey himself. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Just let that sink in for a second. I mean, it perfectly captures a pretty much universal flaw in human communication, doesn't it? We get so unbelievably eager to share our own brilliant thoughts, or our experiences, or our quick fixes, that we completely miss what the other person is actually trying to say.
So, I want you to be completely honest with me for a second. Have you ever caught yourself thinking about your response before the other person even finishes speaking? I know I have, for sure. It happens way more often than any of us really want to admit. In today's incredibly fast-paced world, it's like we only listen just long enough to queue up our own answer. And the result? Misunderstandings spread like wildfire, our relationships weaken, and resolving conflicts becomes significantly harder.
And that brings us right to the core premise of Covey's Habit 5. The absolute foundation of effective communication is not speaking, it's listening. Communication isn't just about batting words back and forth like a tennis match. It's about creating true understanding. And real listening, well, that requires patience, empathy, and genuine curiosity. Because when people feel understood, they instantly become more open, more cooperative, and way more willing to understand us in return.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to look at the crucial difference between just hearing and actually listening. Hearing is completely automatic. You hear background noise every single day without making an ounce of effort. Your brain just processes the audio. But listening is highly intentional. It means paying active attention, not just to the words being spoken, but to the emotions, the hidden concerns, and the deep perspectives behind those words. It's the difference between merely processing sound and actively comprehending meaning.
So this brings us to the core shift required by Habit 5, which Covey calls empathic listening. This means listening with the explicit goal of understanding another person's point of view. Notice what's missing there? Not judging, not correcting, and definitely not interrupting them. It requires moving away from that internal voice asking, "How should I respond?" and replacing it with, "What is this person really trying to tell me?" Literally, this one small shift changes the dynamic of the whole shebang.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how easily we fall into these everyday communication traps. There are basically 4 ways we typically fail to listen. First, ignoring, just flat out not paying attention. Second, pretending. You know, the classic nodding while you're actually thinking about what you're having for dinner. Third is selective listening, only tuning into the parts of the conversation that interest us. And finally, listening to reply, literally just waiting for the other person to stop making noises so it's our turn to speak.
In stark contrast to those 4 listening failures, we have the gold standard: empathic listening. This is all about trying to fully understand another person's thoughts and feelings before even thinking about responding. This is the elite level Covey encourages all of us to hit. Highly effective people don't just hear words, right? They understand people. Let's bring this down to earth with a real-life example. Imagine you're sitting down with a good friend, and they look at you and say, "I've been feeling overwhelmed at work lately." This right here is a critical crossroads in the conversation, where you have to make a choice about how you respond. Let's pit 2 potential responses against each other. First, we have the poor response. "You think you're busy? Let me tell you about my week." Yikes. Immediately, you've made the entire conversation about yourself. But compare that to the empathic response. That sounds difficult. What's been causing you the most stress? By simply validating their feelings and asking a thoughtful follow-up question, your friend actually feels heard. This approach builds immense trust and opens the door for a much, much deeper connection.
Now, this principle doesn't just apply to hanging out with friends. It is an absolute superpower in the workplace, too. Consider the concept of understanding before explaining. So many arguments happen simply because people focus on proving they're right instead of actually understanding each other. Imagine 2 coworkers disagreeing on a big project. Instead of interrupting, they each take a few minutes to explain their perspective while the other listens with zero judgment. Only after both feel completely understood do they even begin discussing solutions. This removes the ego, prevents arguments rooted in who is right, and makes the discussion respectful and productive.
And this brilliantly illustrates a foundational concept Covey introduces earlier in his work: the emotional bank account. It's such a powerful metaphor for relationships. Think of it like this. Every single interaction you have with someone is either a deposit into or a withdrawal from that relationship's level of trust. You are constantly managing the balance of these invisible accounts with your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Let's make this abstract concept of trust highly concrete for a second. Think about deposits versus withdrawals. Deposits include active listening, showing genuine respect, keeping your promises, and expressing kindness. Withdrawals? Well, those are things like interrupting, judging, or just plain ignoring someone. Empathic listening is literally one of the biggest deposits you can ever make into an emotional bank account because it shows pure, undeniable respect. And the stronger the emotional bank account, the stronger the relationship.
Section: How to Practice Habit 5. Putting empathic listening into action. Okay, let's get right into the nuts and bolts of how you actually do this in your daily life.
Let's move to and see how this builds with our very first physical behaviors. Step 1. Give your full attention. This means putting away your phone. Yes, actually face down or completely out of sight, maintaining eye contact, and dropping the distractions. Step 2. Don't interrupt. Allow the other person to completely finish their thought before you even begin yours. And remember, silence is a tool. Silence often encourages people to share way more deeply than they initially planned.
Once they've finished, move to the next strategy. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of asking questions that easily lead to a dead-end yes or no, use prompts like, "Can you tell me more?" or "How did that make you feel?" or "What happened next?" Replacing yes or no questions with these open-ended prompts directly invites a much deeper, more revealing conversation.
Now, this next step is absolutely essential before you ever offer your own opinion or solution. Reflect before responding. Basically, try summarizing what you've just heard. You can use a simple phrase like, "So what I'm hearing is that you're frustrated because you feel your efforts haven't been recognized." This verbally confirms your understanding, proving to them that you are truly listening, before you introduce your own thoughts.
Let's quickly summarize the core lessons from Habit 5 that we've covered today. First, listening is vastly more powerful than speaking. People value those who genuinely understand them. Second, empathy builds trust. Third, listen to understand, not to reply. Fourth, and this is a massive one, ask before you advise. People often need your understanding long before they actually need your solutions. And finally, whether at home or at work, better communication always leads to better relationships.
So, I want to issue a direct challenge to you for this coming week. Try to change your behavior by doing exactly this. During just one conversation a day, focus only on listening. Do not interrupt while they are speaking. Ask at least one open-ended question. Repeat back what you've heard before giving your opinion. And most importantly, notice how the other person responds when they finally feel truly understood. It is amazing to watch. So, the crucial point is the great irony of communication. The absolute best way to be understood is to first understand others. Habit 5 reminds us that communication is about so much more than just expressing our own ideas. When we actually take the time to truly listen, we reduce conflict and we build unshakable trust. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, becoming a great listener makes you incredibly valuable.
I'll leave you with this final, provocative question. Think about your last important conversation. Did you spend more time genuinely listening or preparing your next response? What could you do differently next time? Reflect on that as you head into your day. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And be sure to check out the next one, where we'll be breaking down the final pieces of Covey's framework, Habits 6 and 7. See you then.